Welcome to UberSchool's comprehensive guide on the importance of using appropriate cryptographic solutions. I'm Dana, and I'll be joined today by my esteemed colleague Pete. Together, we'll dive deep into this crucial topic for all you future cybersecurity experts out there.
That's right, Dana, and let me tell you folks, this isn't just another dry lecture. We're here to make sure you not only understand these concepts, but can apply them in real-world scenarios. By the end of this session, you'll be well prepared for any exam questions that come your way.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Petey. Now let's start with the basics. What exactly is cryptography, and why is it so important in today's digital landscape?
Great question, D-Man. Cryptography is essentially the practice of secure communication in the presence of adversaries. It's all about protecting information and communications through the use of codes, so that only those for whom the information is intended can read and process it.
Exactly right. And in our interconnected world where data breaches and cyber attacks are becoming increasingly common, the importance of cryptography cannot be overstated. It's the backbone of digital security, protecting everything from your online banking transactions to sensitive government communications.
Absolutely. Now let's dive into one of the fundamental concepts in modern cryptography, public key infrastructure, or PKI. Dana, would you like to explain this to our listeners?
Certainly, Pete. Public key infrastructure is a set of roles, policies, hardware, software, and procedures needed to create, manage, distribute, use, store, and revoke digital certificates, and manage public key encryption. At its core, PKI relies on two key components, public keys and private keys.
That's right. Public keys are openly shared and used to encrypt messages or verify digital signatures. On the other hand, private keys must be kept secret and are used to decrypt messages or create digital signatures. This asymmetric system forms the backbone of many secure communications on the Internet.
Excellent explanation, Pete. Now here's a question for our listeners. Which of the following is not a typical use of PKI? A. Secure email. B. Digital signatures. C. Symmetric encryption. Or D. SSL/TLS for web security.
That's a great question, Dan. I'll give our listeners a moment to think about it. Spoke. All right, the correct answer is C, symmetric encryption. PKI is primarily used for asymmetric encryption, digital signatures, and secure communication protocols like SSL/TLS. Symmetric encryption, while important in cryptography, doesn't typically rely on PKI.
Spot on, Pete. Now let's move on to discuss various levels of encryption. The choice of encryption level depends on specific security requirements and operational needs. Can you walk us through some of these levels, Pete?
Certainly, Dana. Let's start with full disk encryption. This method protects the entire contents of a storage device, offering comprehensive protection against physical theft. It's like putting a force field around your entire hard drive.
That's a great analogy, Pete. What about partition encryption?
Partition encryption allows for encrypting specific partitions, balancing security and performance. It's like having separate safes within your house, each with its own lock.
Excellent. And file-level encryption?
File-level encryption provides granular control but requires active management. It's like having a separate lock for each individual document in your office. Volume encryption offers a middle ground, encrypting entire logical volumes.
Don't forget about database encryption, Pete. We have options like database-level encryption, protecting the entire database, or record-level encryption, which provides fine-grained control but may impact performance.
Absolutely right, Dana. And let's not forget about transport encryption, using protocols like TLS/SSL, which protects data in transit, guarding against eavesdropping and man-in-the-middle attacks.
Great overview, Pete. Now here's another question for our listeners. Which encryption method would be most appropriate for protecting sensitive customer data in a cloud-based CRM system? A. Full disk encryption. B. File-level encryption. C. Database-level encryption. Or D. Transport encryption.
That's a tricky one, Dana. Let's give our listeners a moment to ponder. All right, the best answer here would be C. Database-level encryption. While all these methods have their place, database-level encryption is particularly well-suited for protecting sensitive data in a cloud-based CRM system. It ensures that all the data within the database is encrypted, providing a strong layer of security for customer information.
Excellent explanation, Pete. Now let's move on to discuss the two primary types of encryption, asymmetric and symmetric. Can you break these down for us?
Certainly, Dana. Asymmetric encryption, also known as public key cryptography, uses a pair of keys, a public key for encryption and a private key for decryption. It provides additional security features like digital signatures. However, it's more computationally intensive.
And symmetric encryption?
Symmetric encryption uses the same key for both encryption and decryption. It's faster and often used for bulk data encryption. The challenge here lies in secure key distribution.
That brings us to key exchange protocols, doesn't it? Can you tell us about the Diffie-Hellman key exchange?
Absolutely, Dana. The Diffie-Hellman key exchange is a method that allows parties to securely agree on a shared secret key over an insecure channel. It's a fundamental protocol in cryptography that enables secure communication without having to exchange any secret keys beforehand.
Fascinating stuff, Pete. You know, all this talk about key exchange reminds me of a story about our old friend Marcus Cooper. Did I ever tell you about the time he tried to create an unbreakable encryption algorithm?
No, Dana, I don't believe you have. Do tell.
Well, Marcus, being the second smartest man I've ever met, after myself of course, decided he could improve on existing encryption methods. He spent 3 days and 3 nights locked in his basement, fueled by nothing but coffee and determination, trying to create what he called the Cooper cipher. He claimed it would revolutionize cryptography.
And did it?
Well, let's just say that when he finally emerged, bleary-eyed and triumphant, he realized he'd essentially reinvented the Caesar cipher. Backwards. We had a good laugh about that one. The moral of the story? Even the smartest among us should trust in established, well-vetted cryptographic solutions.
That's hilarious, Dana. And a great segue into our next topic, the importance of using proven cryptographic tools. Let's talk about some hardware tools that enhance cryptographic security.
Absolutely, Pete. One such tool is the Trusted Platform Module, or TPM. Can you explain what that is?
Certainly, Dana. A Trusted Platform Module, or TPM, is a hardware chip that provides secure storage of cryptographic keys and performs cryptographic operations. It's designed to provide hardware-based security-related functions and is often built into the motherboard of computers.
Excellent. And what about hardware security modules, or HSMs?
Hardware security modules, or HSMs, are physical computing devices that safeguard and manage digital keys for strong authentication and provide crypto processing. These devices can be in the form of a plug-in card or an external device that attaches directly to a computer or network server.
Great explanation, Pete. Now let's test our listeners' understanding. Here's a question. Which of the following is not a primary function of a hardware security module, HSM? A. Key generation. B. Encryption and decryption. C. Network routing. Or D. Digital signing.
That's a good one, Dana. Let's give our listeners a moment to think. All right, the correct answer is C. Network routing. While HSMs are crucial for cryptographic operations like key generation, encryption/decryption, and digital signing, they are not typically used for network routing. That's a function usually handled by dedicated networking devices.
Spot on, Pete. Now let's move on to discuss key management systems. These are crucial for generating, distributing, storing, rotating, and revoking cryptographic keys. Effective key management is essential for maintaining the security of encrypted data.
Absolutely, Dina. And don't forget about secure enclaves. These provide an isolated environment for sensitive operations, further enhancing the security of cryptographic processes.
Great point, Pete. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about some obfuscation techniques. Can you tell us about steganography?
Certainly, Dana. Steganography is the practice of concealing a file, message, image, or video within another file, message, image, or video. It's like hiding a tree in a forest. While it's not encryption per se, it's often used in conjunction with cryptographic methods to add an extra layer of security.
Excellent explanation, Pete. What about tokenization?
Tokenization is a method of replacing sensitive data with unique identification symbols that retain all the essential information about the data without compromising its security. It's commonly used in payment systems to protect credit card information.
And data masking?
Data masking creates a structurally similar but inauthentic version of an organization's data. This can be used to protect sensitive data while providing a functional substitute for purposes such as software testing and user training.
Great overview, Pete. Now here's another question for our listeners. Which of these techniques is best suited for hiding the existence of a message entirely? A. Encryption, B. Tokenization, C. Steganography, or D. Data masking?
That's a great question, Dana. Let's give our listeners a moment to consider. Oh, the correct answer is C. Steganography. While encryption protects the content of a message, steganography aims to hide the very existence of the message, often by embedding it within another seemingly innocuous file or message.
Excellent, Pete. Now let's move on to discuss hashing and salting. These are crucial concepts in cryptography, especially when it comes to storing passwords securely. Can you explain what hashing is?
Certainly, Dana. Hashing is a process of converting input data of any length into a fixed-size string of characters. It's a one-way function, meaning it's practically impossible to reverse the process and get the original input from the hash. This makes it ideal for password storage and data integrity checks.
And what about salting, Pete?
Salting is a technique used in conjunction with hashing. It involves adding a unique, random string of characters to each password before hashing. This ensures that even if two users have the same password, their hashed passwords will be different. It's a crucial defense against rainbow table attacks.
Excellent explanation, Pete. Now let's test our listeners again. Which of the following is true about salting? A. It makes passwords easier to remember. B. It increases the complexity of the hashing process. C. It's used to encrypt passwords. Or D. It's only necessary for short passwords.
Another great question, Dana. Let's give our listeners a moment. The correct answer is B. It increases the complexity of the hashing process. Salting doesn't affect password memorability, it's not an encryption method, and it's important for passwords of all lengths. Its primary purpose is to add complexity to the hashing process, making it more resistant to various types of attacks.
Spot on, Pete. Now let's talk about digital signatures and key stretching. These are important concepts in ensuring the integrity and security of digital communications and stored data.
Absolutely, Dana. Digital signatures provide authentication, integrity, and non-repudiation for digital documents or messages. They use asymmetric cryptography to create a unique, verifiable signature. It's like a digital version of a handwritten signature, but much more secure and verifiable.
And what about key stretching, Pete?
Key stretching techniques increase the computational resources required for key derivation, making brute force attacks more difficult. Algorithms like PBKDF2 and bcrypt are commonly used for this purpose. It's like adding extra locks to a door. It doesn't make the key itself any stronger, but it makes it much harder for an attacker to break in.
Excellent analogies, Pete. Now let's move on to a topic that's been getting a lot of attention lately, blockchain and open public ledgers. Can you give us an overview of blockchain technology?
Certainly, Dana. Blockchain technology provides a tamper-evident, decentralized record of transactions. Its security is based on cryptographic hashing, consensus mechanisms, and the distributed nature of the ledger. Each block in the chain contains a number of transactions, and every time a new transaction occurs, a record of that transaction is added to every participant's ledger.
And what about open public ledgers, Pete?
Open public ledgers, often used in blockchain implementations, allow anyone to view the entire transaction history. While this transparency can enhance security and trust in the system, it also raises privacy concerns that need to be carefully addressed. It's a balancing act between transparency and privacy.
Excellent explanation, Pete. Now here's another question for our listeners. Which of the following is not a key feature of blockchain technology? A. Decentralization, B. Transparency, C. Immutability, or D. Centralized control?
That's a great question, Dana. Let's give our listeners a moment to think. The correct answer is D, centralized control. In fact, one of the key features of blockchain is its decentralized nature. It operates on a distributed network of computers with no single point of control or failure. This is in contrast to traditional centralized systems.
Spot on, Pete. Now let's move on to discuss certificates and certificate authorities. These play a crucial role in establishing trust online. Can you explain what digital certificates are?
Certainly, Dana. Digital certificates are electronic documents used to prove the ownership of a public key. They're issued by trusted certificate authorities, CAs, and play a crucial role in establishing trust online. Different types of certificates serve specific purposes, such as SSL/TLS certificates for websites and code signing certificates for software.
And what about certificate revocation lists and the online certificate status protocol?
Certificate revocation lists, CRLs, and the Online Certificate Status Protocol, OCSP, are used to manage the life cycle of certificates, allowing for timely revocation when necessary. If a private key is compromised or a certificate is no longer valid for some reason, these mechanisms allow that information to be communicated to relying parties.
Excellent, Pete. Now, what about self-signed certificates? How do they differ from CA-issued certificates?
Self-signed certificates are digital certificates that are signed by the same entity whose identity they certify, rather than by a trusted certificate authority. While they can be useful for testing or in closed systems, they don't offer the third-party validation that CA-issued certificates provide. In contrast, CA-issued certificates offer different levels of validation, from basic domain validation to more rigorous extended validation.
Great explanation, Pete. Now, let's test our listeners again. Which of the following is not a typical use for a digital certificate? A. Securing website connections. B. Signing software code. C. Encrypting email communications. Or D. Storing encrypted data.
Another excellent question, Dina. Let's give our listeners a moment to ponder Moran. The correct answer is D. Storing encrypted data. While digital certificates are crucial for securing connections, verifying software authenticity, and enabling secure email, they're not typically used for storing encrypted data. That's usually handled by other cryptographic methods we've discussed earlier.
Spot on, Pete. Now let's wrap up with a discussion on the root of trust and certificate signing requests. These are fundamental concepts in PKI. Can you explain what the root of trust is?
Certainly, Dana. The root of trust is the foundational element in a trusted computing system. In PKI, it's typically the root CA certificate. It's the anchor of trust in the entire system, and maintaining a secure root of trust is critical for the entire trust chain. If the root of trust is compromised, the entire system's security is at risk.
Excellent. And what about certificate signing requests?
Certificate signing requests, CSRs, are used to apply for digital certificates. They contain the public key and identifying information of the requester. When you want a CA to issue a certificate, you generate a CSR and send it to the CA. The CA then uses this information to create and sign your certificate. Proper CSR generation and management are crucial for maintaining a secure PKI environment.
Great explanation, Pete. Now, one last question for our listeners. What is the primary purpose of a wildcard certificate? A. To secure multiple subdomains. B. To provide the highest level of validation. C. To enable certificate revocation. Or D. To generate certificate signing requests?
That's a great final question, Dana. Let's give our listeners a moment to think. The correct answer is A. To secure multiple subdomains. Wildcard certificates can secure a domain and all its subdomains, which can be very convenient. However, they should be used judiciously due to the potential security risks if compromised.
Excellent, Pete. Well, that brings us to the end of our comprehensive guide on the importance of using appropriate cryptographic solutions. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the basics of cryptography to advanced concepts like blockchain and PKI.
Indeed we have, Dana. Remember, folks, appropriate cryptographic solutions are essential for maintaining the confidentiality, integrity, and authenticity of information in our digital world. From PKI to blockchain, from encryption to digital signatures, each tool and technique we've discussed plays a crucial role in the broader landscape of information security.
Absolutely right, Pete. The key to effective cryptography lies not just in understanding these concepts, but in applying them appropriately based on specific security requirements and operational needs. We hope this discussion has illuminated the importance of cryptography and information security and prepared you for any exam questions that might come your way.
And remember, this has been an UberSchool production. We're here to ensure that every student who listens to our content passes their exams with flying colors. Keep studying, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep securing those systems.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Pete. Until next time, this is Dana.
And Pete.
Signing off from UberSchool. Stay curious, stay secure, and ace those exams.